Everything in my life today is not because of anything in my history. This is not what I studied for. This is not what I spent most of my life doing. Whatever I do today, whatever money I earn has totally been created out of thin air, like magic, like poof. There is no history, there is no evidence. I wouldn't bet on myself if you were to take me a few years back and say, Sumit, can you bet your money on this, that you would be doing this in a few years? I wouldn't bet on it. And this is what I help my clients do. Today, even tomorrow, I'm going to be spending my full day with the founding team of a company. The company wasn't even there 12 months ago. And today I'm working with their entire team. So my clients are also demonstrating what is also true for me. What I want to share through this short recording is very, very practical. This is not intellectual for me. And this is for you if you want something in your life which you have no evidence for in the past, which you have never done in the past, but you want it. You know in your bones that you want it. If you want to explore how to create something totally out of your dreams, your imagination, without any precedence, then this is for you. If you don't have anything like that in your life, then you can turn this video off right now. You don't need to watch it. But if that is something that you're curious about, if that is something that you want to practice in your life, I want to walk you through a very simple process. I practice this almost once every week, if not more, sometimes multiple times in a single week. I'm going to walk you through a simple template, but I've gotten so used to it that I can almost do it in my head in a few minutes. This is basically how human beings reach limit their potential and how we can grow to the next level, whatever that next level is for you. The foundation of this is 95%. Most of our behavior, most of what we do every day, every second is habitual, is unconscious. We do not consciously choose. And that is not something wrong. That is in fact wonderful, because otherwise we would not be able to survive. These unconscious patterns have brought us where we are today. After 16 years of working as an engineer, leading large IT teams, large AI machine learning teams in big tech companies, that was a result of all of these patterns working slowly over time. When we are operating from these patterns, our future is simply a reflection of the past. It is slightly better, it is slightly improved version of the past. This way of being, right, when we are being that way, there's nothing wrong with that. But this is something we call our default being, or a condition. Like we have been conditioned, we have been prepared with life as we have learned to live life into this way of being. This is exactly how the brain should be working with your history, experiences, upbringing. And there's a very good reason for whatever behavior, whatever patterns, whatever strategies you use to win at life, to produce results, which has allowed you to reach where you are today. And these strategies, these patterns have kept you safe, right? But they are also your biggest strengths. And if you can't choose, they also can become your biggest liabilities, limitations, or blockers to create something totally new, totally fresh in the future. Now, some of the major payoffs, right? Our brain doesn't use a pattern of behavior for nothing. There are major payoffs that we get to use our default state of being. Some of these might be true for you and some might not be. We will go deeper into that as we go to the worksheet. Some of those payoffs that we get unconsciously is like we get to be right and we get to make others wrong. It happens on a very subconscious level. We all want to be right. We all want to be proven right. We want to dominate others. We get to avoid getting dominated by others. Get to look good, get to be admired, get to be like when I was successful in my IT career, there was a lot of respect. There was a lot of looking good in front of other people, in front of my peers. I was standing out as a leader. You get to win, right? Whatever strategies you build on, you get to win. That is what you have used to win and to reach where you are in your life. And you get to justify yourself. At the same time, they can also be used to avoid responsibility for what you really want, right? I used to say I'm very hardworking, so now I cannot do something very creative like painting or photography. And then my pattern of hardworking, of being analytical, being an engineer actually came in the way. And you get a sense of safety, security, approval. And the most important thing is it's a false sense, which you will know as we go through this process. This default state of being comes with major costs. You lack joy, aliveness, like there's something you want, which is unreasonable, but it is something you want. It is a dream. It is something in your bones you have always wanted, but it has always been on hold. And when that is not fulfilled because of whatever your default being tells you, you lack joy, you lack satisfaction, aliveness, and meaning because that dream is still in the future. It also creates a lack of affinity, trust, and love in relationships, both at home and at work. You miss out on your self-expression. You confine yourself in the default being, which is what you have learned, which is what people have taught you, and which is the way you see life. Most importantly, your health, your well-being, and your peace of mind is also suffering. because of that. And left to our own devices, right? If we don't intervene, all of us human beings would rather be right than happy. We would rather be right than go after our dreams. We would rather be right than build strong teams. We would rather be right about what I think about myself, what I think about yourself, what I think about the world. I would rather be right than happy, joyful, and go after what I want to create in my life. The power of this is only when we become aware of these patterns, we get choice. Nobody is saying to totally shift from what has brought you here, to totally eliminate that. There is nothing wrong with that. If you don't see that as just one pattern, then that is life for you. You don't see a choice. But once you see this is a pattern, then you have choice. You can still use a pattern if you want to. You can still be in your default state of being, but you have all the other possibilities also. This is what I call leadership. And this is the foundation of everything that I have produced in my life. So I'm going to walk you through this worksheet very quickly. And there are a few questions here. I have written my own reflections, my own answers as I walk you through this in brackets, like these brackets. Right? So the section first is noticing that what are the behavior patterns that you rely on and repeat to deal with life circumstances. Whatever circumstances happen in life, especially if those are difficult, challenging, or crisis circumstances, how have you dealt with it? Like, it's not about the circumstances, it is about how you have learned to deal with it. And what are those patterns that you repeat to win and to get what you want? Now, the circumstances might be same, but every human being might react to it in a different way. For me, whenever life was going crazy, my pattern was believing that it is all up to me to fix. Nobody else can do that, and it's my responsibility. I have to fix it. I have to save the day. That was my pattern. That led to always knowing all the details. That made me a very good engineer, a very good analytical person. I was very good at math. I was very good at taking responsibility and then jumping in to fix problems and help others, right? Fixing problems not just for myself, but also starting with fixing problems for other people. That is one pattern that I have relied upon. That is probably my biggest strength even today. That once I say something, I don't have to worry about whether I do it or not. Responsibility is natural. It's so natural to me that I'm happy to die suffering with responsibility than going on the other side, that somebody who doesn't take responsibility. That's my pattern. That's what I have relied on. That's my biggest strength. And once again, this is not about right and wrong. This is not about judgment or good or bad. This exercise, these questions are really about noticing and becoming aware of how you have won, what strategies you use or have used to win in life. Just becoming aware of yourself, your strengths, and the limits of those strengths. Second question is, what thoughts or emotions are present in those moments of crisis when you jump in, when you handle things in your own way? For me, the thoughts in my mind is, I must fix it, right? I almost get uneasy that there's a huge temptation that I must fix it. And I have to stay on top of things. I cannot let go of control. I cannot let go of not knowing everything. And another thought was, I have to help others. If I don't help others, then something is wrong, either with me or the project. The emotion that used to produce was anxiety, restlessness. Once I have jumped in and saved the day, the emotion would be pride, satisfaction, and admiration. And once again, this is brilliant. Nothing wrong with that. We are just becoming aware of our strengths. We are just becoming aware of how we use, what are our patterns, what are our strategies that we use every time a situation demands our attention. Every time there is a crisis, there is a challenge. This is the pattern that we use. Now, what personal strength or quality have you built up in responding this way? For me, this was hard work. I'm not afraid of hard work. Discipline is not difficult to me. If I have to do something every day at 9 a.m., it's not difficult. For a lot of people, being on time is not easy. That's not their pattern. But for me, being organized, being resilient, being like detailed, knowing it all, or figuring out everything to get the big picture is not difficult. That comes naturally to me because my whole life has been a training for all of this. This will be different for everybody who does this exercise. Where in your life has this actually become necessary for you? For me, in my personal life, supporting my mother when she was sick, since I remember, maybe I was 5 or 7 years old, I have seen her sick. First because of asthma, then because of cancer. Supporting her and being the elder child in the house has basically drilled this into me. Being on top of things, I can't ignore where things are. I can't ignore that the door of the house is locked. I can't ignore there's enough food. I can't ignore that I have numbers to call people if she's not well or if I have to do whatever. That led me to taking care of my brother, being very good in studies and exams, and then later on in professional lives, always overworking, always overachieving, getting promoted, getting recognition, getting awards. This whole thing has drilled these patterns into me, right? So this will be different for you, but I want you to reflect on your history, on your background, and see where this way of thinking became necessary for you. What was the birthplace of these patterns? Every human being is born blank. then everybody becomes different. We call this our personality. Everybody creates a different personality or a different default way of being. Something happens, everybody has a different upbringing, a different surrounding, and they learn different patterns to deal with life. This question is for you to reflect back and identify where you learn to deal with life in this way. The fifth question is, what do you gain, right? What payoff do you get? And for me, I get to be independent. I get to be skilled. I get to be reliant. Like I can rely on myself. Others can rely on me. I get to be a very hard worker. Like I get to have an attitude where I would never give up. I can die suffering, but I would never give up. That's one of the huge skills that has been drilled into me because of my background. There are also unconscious payoffs, right? As we discussed on page 1 of this worksheet. The question here is to check all that apply for you. For me, with the knowledge, being on top of things, I always got to be right. I always knew I could prove that I was right. I get to dominate others because I love to get control. I have to save the day to avoid being dominated. And I get to look good because this gave me a lot of rewards, a lot of recognition. This being hardworking, never give up, being independent, this gave me a lot of recognition, especially early in my career. All of my achievement came from like independently. I was so disciplined, I was so hardworking that I would outwork everybody and climb the ladder very quickly. And I get to win, I get to avoid losing, and I get to justify myself, right? The more I see results being produced by my default patterns, by my default being, I get to double down, I get to justify myself. And for the dreams that I was not pursuing, I get to avoid taking responsibility, right? For a long time, almost 7-8 years, I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to support leaders, entrepreneurs. I get to justify myself by saying, I am an introvert. I'm an engineer. This is not something I can do, right? I'm not coming from the coaching background, HR background, psychology background. And I get to justify and avoid taking responsibility for my dreams. At the same time, there was a huge cost, right? There was a huge cost to this pattern. I would not have any personal time because I would be so busy just knowing everything, helping everybody, fixing all the details, staying on top of things. And what made me a very good performer when I was an individual leader, I grew up to a point where I was leading 20, 25 people. And what I saw was I was surrounded by followers. I was not surrounded by leaders. And my growth basically become capped at 25, 30 people when I was leading that kind of team. Because beyond that, you would need to create more leaders under you. My strengths became a limitation after a certain point. I also strained relationships because I kind of went into the right and wrong attitude. I knew where everybody was going wrong, so I would fix them. I would point it out, and nobody likes that. At a higher professional level, my relationships started to get strained, and my growth became limited after 7 or 8 years of working. This also led to huge stress and anxiety because my mind was always racing. I was always trying to understand, fix problems. And I had a very active mind which can't stay silent. Overthinking, anxiety, unnecessary worrying about things going wrong. That was always on my mind. And if these patterns would have continued for another years, the risk might be my growth is like now already was limited for the last many years. And there was nothing happening. I used to have health issues. Like I had no time for family, a lot of stress and a lack of strong independent leaders around me to rely upon for support. I was growing. I was doing slightly better every year, but I was not doing anything exponentially different. I was not doing anything drastically new, and I was not moving towards my dream. I was just getting a slightly better. And one of the reasons was like everybody else, I was pulling them up. Like everybody around me, I was pulling them up. I did not have a team who were pulling me. I did not have people stronger than me, smarter than me, different skills than me in my team. I was pulling them up, and that was draining me. That was limiting my growth, and that was no fun. Now is the time to choose leadership in the next part. And the simple question that you have to ask for yourself, what is the default future? Because the future is going to happen. It's not going to wait for you. So what is the default future if things continue? When I asked this question, I could see the writing on the wall. Writing on the wall was, if I continue like this, either I would be stuck in a job where I'm not growing, I'm not happy, and it's just becoming boring, or I would be fired from that job because I'm unable to grow, I'm unable to learn, and the frustration starts to impact my performance. And I would also start to have health problems, stress problems. I was gaining weight, I was not fit, I was not happy. And the whole thing, I could see the writing on the wall. And certainly there was no possibility of shifting my career outside of IT, which is what I wanted to do, which is what my dream was. And there was a point where I said, this is the default future. Like I don't have to wait for the next 2 years. I can already see this is happening, this will happen. And then I asked myself, is that okay with me? There was a clear answer, it is not okay with me. And then what is the created future that I want to create? What were my dreams? What were my ambitions? And the dreams was, I want to pivot my career. I wanted to coach CEOs. I wanted to coach leaders. I wanted to support former athletes and artists live a life of inspiration, which I'm doing today. I knew that like 7 years ago, I wanted to create a coaching company. I wanted to create multiple other companies. I am an entrepreneur. I think like an entrepreneur. I want to start a foundation, which is actually going to start sometime later this year, which will then mediate and solve global conflicts, national conflicts of the biggest countries, regions of the world. That is something which I wanted to do. Then there was a point where I said, this is not working. This is who I am, but this is not working. And the final reflection, a final question that I want you to answer is, when this created future and dreams have come true, a big part of it has come true for me now, and a big part of it will come true in the future. But I asked myself this question, who am I being when this has come true? Like even in 2019, I asked myself in 2025 or 2023, when this has come true, who am I being? And this is what I saw, that I am being comfortable with uncertainty and not knowing. Right? Because what I wanted, there was no certainty, no training, no path. This was totally stepping into uncertainty. My whole life has been about knowing. My whole life has been about reducing uncertainty. That's what engineers do. That's what technicians do. And I had to get comfortable with that. Like one other thing that I saw was I have to be okay with building businesses in areas outside of my expertise, right? The whole of my life was about learning, education, learning something, and then building a career or doing something in that. Now what I'm doing totally something because I want to do it, not because I am skilled in doing that. I just want to do it. And then what I'm doing, I'm coaching people smarter, richer, with more wealth, and with more success than me in every field, right? Take it sports. I'm coaching former national level athletes, like both from India and Netherlands, and there will be more in the future. And I'm coaching businessmen who are leading companies worth like 125 million is the highest one. And I have given talks. I have spoken to billionaires in the last few years. There's no credibility. There's no history. There's no evidence. And I had to become that. I saw 5 years ago that I had to be a good public speaker in big rooms, which is something as an engineer, I have never done. I have always stayed hidden behind a screen, behind a computer. And then I have to build strong communication skills, strong sales skills, negotiation skills to deal with all kinds of people, like deal with aggressive people, alpha males, bullies, as well as people who are totally dull, who lack motivation. As a leader, you have to build everybody up, right? I realized even back then that this is who I would be if this has to come true. And the old strengths, whatever my life was basically coming in the way. So I invite you to think of what you want in your life, whatever future you desire, that you know is a dream you cannot let go of. If you don't have anything like that, then that's perfect. This is not for you. But if there is something like that with you, then use this simple questions. I think 10 questions here. Yeah, 10 questions and a final reflection to identify, to notice, to become aware of how you have lived life, how you have learned to win at life. This will be the most self-awareness producing thing that you can do. I do it almost every few weeks or sometimes multiple times a week. Every time I hit a wall, I go back and say, okay, what is the default being? What is the pattern that because of which I am hitting a wall? I cannot see some other way. Once I see the pattern for what it is, just the pattern, just one way that I have learned to deal with things, all possibilities that I have as a human being, then I am free, that I am free to step back and approach the same thing in some other way. Do this exercise as many times as you can. Take some time for yourself. This will be the best gift for your future, especially if you want to create something in your future that your history does not have the evidence, education, training for. If you think that there is more in you than your current level of success shows, then do this exercise, and this will be the wonderful gift that you can give to yourself. I wasn't supposed to be here, and I often sit back and reflect that, like, how did I get here? How did this life happen? Because it sometimes really feels unbelievable. It feels untrue. And this process that I shared with you is at the root of it. Just realizing what has been creating all my life and then choosing fresh, making a fresh choice, allowing me to lead my life in a way that was not even possible, that was not even imaginable earlier. This process, this simple reflection exercise is at the root of it. So if this resonated with you, and if you would like to know more, reach out. If you don't have the PDF or if you don't have the doc, which I walked you through in the video, send me a message and I will share that with you. And anyways, look below in the description, use the links in the description to help yourself and to find other ways that I can be of help to you, to your teams, to your companies, and to fulfill any dream, right? Personal or professional, any dream that you have in your life that you currently think is unimaginable, that you currently think is out of your reach, but you know in your bones that you want it. You know in your bones that you are meant for more than your current level of success shows. If that is true, then in the description, find the links and reach out to me. Thank you.